Hey guys, welcome back. This is video 3 of the Aero Precision Solus series. Today we have a lot of topics to go over, and the biggest one though was seeing how the rifle stacked up with a lot of barrel heat. Some people had questions about it stringing when there was a lot of barrel heat to it, so I wanted to show those effects. Now from there, I'm going to go in and show you the load development method as far as taking out the ejector to check if your cases are fire formed or not, specifically with the Solus action itself. And then going through and showing the results from our advanced load development course and how easy it is just to load up ammo and get the results that you need right away. For the test itself and seeing the stringing of ammo, we didn't just go through and shoot a 5-shot group. I wanted to shoot a lot of 5-shot groups, so I shot about 20 5-shot groups. I have to go back and look, but it was quite a bit. From there, as far as the rifle setup, because I know some of you might have questions of like, okay, well, how did you eliminate most of the shooter effects behind the rifle? And if you're not familiar with that, the rifle does recoil first, and then the projectile exits second. So a lot of accuracy is driven the monkey behind the gun. So I went out and bought a $200 protector front rest, something cheap that I could get up there as far as affordability for some of the front rests, because they can get really expensive. And then needed a solution. So you can see here this rifle. I know a lot of you guys are rolling your eyes right now, but to do a fair test, I went out and bought a 3-inch piece of pine across so it would fit with the forend inside of the rest without canting left or right. And then got a bench rest rear bag as well too. Took a little bit to figure out how to shoot this thing, as far as watching videos from some guys online, teaching how to shoot off these things, as far as if you want free recoil, making the gun come completely back without deviating, or maybe even, applying slight pressure rearward on the stock itself. So went out, shot a lot of 5-shot groups, and you can see the results later in this video, but the results are pretty interesting. So let's just get right into it. All right, so for the fire forming process here, we're going to disassemble the bolt, but first I'm going to pop out the bolt face to make this a little bit easier. And then we're going to use a wood clamp and a case. So that case is there to push the ejectors down so you can pop out that retaining pin that you can see that I'm doing right now. But just be careful, because when you pop out that retaining pin, those ejectors are under spring tension. So when you take that little case that you have off of the front of the bolt face, the ejectors themselves launch across the room, because they're under spring tension, so be careful of that. You can see the 2 little ejectors there that I'm about to pull out, and then we're just going to remove the springs behind them as well too. And then we'll move on to the fire forming process as far as checking if our head spacing is correct or what we need to do sizing wise to the cases. So remove the firing pin, universally deprime your cases, and then reassemble the bolt as I'm doing there. Now, we can see that the head spacing of these cases is 1.5590. We're going to enter it into our chamber here, and since the bolt isn't dropping, that tells us those cases are fire formed to our chamber. Now, we'll go back, bump the cases back 2 thousandths, which is 1.5570 in my example, and then we're going to re-enter it into the chamber, and then see if the bolt will drop freely, which tells us, okay, this is going to chamber great, and it's going to work perfect for what we're doing. Now, once you pop that retaining pin back in, you're going to need that case, of course, and the wood clamp to push the ejectors down, and you're ready to keep on going, and then reassemble the bolt, and you're right back into the ball game, moving on to whatever load development or shooting needs that you have. Okay, now moving on to load development. For this, I used our load development method that we teach in class. This isn't doing traditional OCW, ladder testing, seating depth test, or any other method of load development method that's taught. For the first step, like you just previously saw, I make sure all of the cases are truly fire formed. Then I use our method to calculate exactly where to load for the best results, and went out and shot. Here you can see that after firing 5 warmers, I yielded an SD of 7 with 95 shots. Not 5 shots, not 10 shots, 95 shots in a row. Again, there is no OCW ladder testing or seating depth test conducted beforehand. All of this was calculated using internal ballistics with the RAD method and objective data to determine what is going to work best. And as a result, you can see the workings of such on the chronograph and paper here. Now, after going through and seeing the results statistically that it's going to work and we're not cherry picking small sample sizes, we're going to move on to the bench rest portion of the video using a front rest to see how much POI shifting we can see with high barrel heat. All right, so after getting some warmers in and getting the fowlers down the barrel, I decided to go ahead and shoot the first group here that you're seeing now. It up as a 0.2515 inch group, so far looking pretty good. And now we're on to our second group. So far, the POI is looking pretty consistent, and this 5-shot group yielded a .2315 inch group. So for the very first shot in this third group, you can see it go high. I felt like I had too much free recoil in the whole entire system, so I didn't think it was fair. So I went back and just fired another 5 shots at that specific group just to get a better idea of if it was me or if it was actually the rifle itself or something else. All right, now we got our fourth group here, ended up yielding a .3755 inch group, and POI shift seems to be pretty much the same. I don't see any deviation so far yet, so we'll see what this next group does for us. All right, so after 4 groups right there, we're on to the 5th one. This one yielded a .6225 inch group, but POI pretty much seems to be the same, even with me influencing it a little bit, so nothing too apparent just yet. All right, so after 5, 10, 15, 20, and 25 shots, this is going to be 30 here. We got a .349 inch group, so it's looking pretty good so far. It seemed like the POI shift started to drip just a little bit. Nothing too crazy just yet, but keep on going and see what happens. All right, after nonstop shooting, this is our, I believe, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th group here. We got a .850 inch group here. We can start to see some vertical stringing. I'm not going to even attempt to try to read that, but we can see now for the next 5-shot group that yielded a .4245 inch group. POI shift seems to be kind of pretty much the same in relation to where the original groups were. And then coming up on our next 5-shot group, we yielded a .427 inch group. So still doing pretty good. All right, so now we got our next one. This one yielded a .744 inch group. We can start to see those first 2 shots were pretty far away from each other. Didn't do any barrel cooldown just yet, but just continued to shoot just to see what would happen with the follow-up shots. I'm gonna let it cool down. Can start to see some of that mirage getting pretty bad with the barrel heat. But then our next 5-shot group was .369 inches. Ended up going more further to the left. I have to go back and look. I think I made, or I'm going to make, an adjustment with the scope here. There it is right there. So the POI shift will look a little bit different with this next 5-shot group. That's a .4875 inch group. And at this point, the barrel's really hot. So we're going to see what happens with these next 5-shot groups. All right, and there it is. After the barrel was really hot to the point I couldn't even get near it or touch it, ended up getting a .893 inch group. Stringing seemed to be pretty far away from the rest of the groups and what it was yielding, so I think at this point I went through and decided to do a barrel cooldown, excuse me, for just a couple of minutes, not to get it completely cool, but to keep it still a little bit warm. And then we could see this next 5-shot group was a .504. Then we got our next 5-shot group, which is a .482, still shooting really good. Again, did do a little barrel cooldown from those last 2 groups that we shot. It was only a couple minutes just to, get some things settled down a little bit because it started stringing pretty bad, but we'll see what happens. All right, and at this point we got a 1.252 inch group. Barrel was at this point still really hot like previously. And it seems to me that the groups start to go a little bit wonky when the barrel gets super hot, but keep in mind, this seems to be very normal. I don't know many guys that are shooting this many amount of groups at once with virtually no barrel cooldown. And again, I did do 1, but that was only for a few minutes, and we can see it pretty bad. And then this next 5-shot group, it was a 1.008 inch group to kind of close it out here. All right, to close it out here, we shot 17 5-shot groups, not counting the followers at the beginning. The total average group size was 0.565 inches. This is including all of the groups that were stringing bad when it came to extremely high barrel heat as well. This Solus, in my opinion, is doing really well, even when putting it through such a rigorous test like this in regard to barrel heat and seeing virtually no POI stringing for a while until it gets extremely hot. But regardless, I can't thank you guys enough for watching this series and going down this rabbit hole with me to really test the Solus. After about $600 to get this video out here, I think this will give you a really good idea of what's going on with the Solus, and virtually having something like a front rest, which is practically cheating. It at least takes more of the human element out of it, more than just a bipod and a rear bag, so you can get an idea of what you can expect from the Solus. If you guys have anything else you want to see, please let me know. I'm more than happy to do a test for you all to see. I do know, though, for those interested, as a little side note, they are coming out with a folder for the Solus and maybe a potential weight kit as well, too. But if you don't mind, the little shameless plug at the end, if you could leave a comment, a like, or a follow, it really does mean a lot and helps support what I'm doing here to give some real-world expectations and data behind the Solus so you can make informed decisions when purchasing this. For the next video, I might do a match with it and stretch its legs out to 1,100 yards for more of a fun video, but again, in the meantime, leave a comment on what you would like to see, and I'll make it happen.